OCO, my name is Shanista Cloud. I'm the Cultural Outreach Coordinator here at the Cherokee Heritage Center. Normally this time of year I would be hopping around to schools all over northeast Oklahoma teaching students how to weave baskets or make pinch pots, but because of the current circumstances, I thought it would be good to find a way to bring some cultural activities to you at home. So what we're going to be doing today is learning how to make a paper Cornhusk doll. Normally when I would go to schools, I would teach students how to make something that looks sort of similar to this. This is an actual Cornhusk doll made from corn husks. But because not everyone has a big pile of corn husk laying around at home, I thought we could find a way to do it with materials you might already have. So we're going to make something that looks a little more like this. This doll is made using a paper sack from a local grocery store. I've also added a little bit of just colored paper here, and if you have that at home you can use that too. But this should be made out of materials that you have already at home and you don't have to go looking for them or order them online. So what you're going to need for this project today is, of course, a paper sack from a local grocery store. You might need a marker for when you're ready to cut out your materials. You'll need some yarn or some kind of string, something to help you tie everything together. And you'll need some coffee filters. These are kind of big, but any coffee filters you have at home should do just fine. We're also going to be using a template that we have on the website, and there'll be a link at the bottom of this video to direct you to the template. And that'll be how you can cut out all the pieces that you'll need for this project. Alright, so I've got my template and I've cut out the pieces that I need. So here's the two skirt pieces that we'll need. These two pieces will be for the shawl. And like I said, if you have some colored paper at home, you can cut those pieces out of the colored paper. Or I just used some markers and made some designs. This is going to be what goes over the doll like this that you see here. This will be these pieces here. And then I've got this big long piece. This is going to be made into the arms, and I'll show you how to do that in just a second. You might also want some glue for this project. Any kind of glue you have at home should work just fine, just if you think you might want to add some glue to hold your doll together a little better. The reason we're using this paper sack is because the paper sack kind of mimics the texture and feel of corn husk, so I thought that would be a good substitute for something that a lot of people might already have at home. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is make the doll's head. That's where this coffee filter comes into play. Now when you're cutting out all of your pieces after you've used your template, you want to save those scraps because we're going to use some of those scraps to make the doll's head. So I'm just going to take some of those scraps and I'm going to wad them up into a little ball, kind of like this. Doesn't have to be very big. And we're just going to put it right in the center of that coffee filter. Now I'm going to just gently squeeze that together and kind of twist it around. Get a nice little round shape. I don't want to be too rough because this is kind of like tissue paper and it might kind of fall apart a little bit, so I want to be gentle with it. Now I'm just going to take one of my pieces of yarn and I'm going to wrap it around the neck. Kind of tight, but we don't want to be too tight because like I said, this is kind of like tissue paper and it might rip if we're too rough with it. So then you just want to tie that together so you've made kind of a little ghost. Okay, so there's our head piece. So I'm just going to take a pair of scissors and trim those strings off. Just want to leave it a little bit hanging there. Okay. So now we're going to set this aside. And the next thing we're going to do is make the arms. So this part comes from that template that we have online for you. So you're just going to cut this piece out, and starting at one end, you're going to fold it over a little bit and then just start to roll it. You want to kind of keep it tight. You don't want big, huge bodybuilder arms. Your doll might look a little funny. But we're just going to roll this up all the way to the end. Kind of even it out if you need to. And I'm going to take one of these pieces of yarn again and I'm going to wrap it around the end just like this. Wrap it around kind of tight, that way it holds itself together. And leave enough for yourself to tie at the end. I almost didn't leave enough at the end there. Okay. So once you get all that together, you might need an extra set of hands for this part, but you just want to tie a good strong knot right here on the end. Just going to loop that over a couple times and pull it real good and tight. One more time just to be safe. Okay. And then just like before, we're just going to trim that off. Leave a little bit excess so that the knot doesn't come undone. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing to the other side. The way I'm showing you how to do this is the exact same way I would have done an actual Cornhusk doll made with corn husks. And that's why I think this brown paper sack material works best, because it really does mimic the feel of that corn husk. The only thing different that we would have done with corn husk is we would have soaked it just for a few minutes. The water helps keep that corn husk pliable so that it doesn't tear, and we can manipulate it however we need to. So there's our arms. Okay. Alright, so now we're going to assemble basically the skeleton of our doll. So we've got the headpiece made, we've got the arms made. So now we're going to take this head and we're going to come down here to the base, and we're going to just kind of guess about where the middle of this would be. So I'm guessing right about here is the middle. So I'm just going to come down here to the middle and make a little tear, and I'm just going to gently pull that tear all the way up to the neck. Okay, so just have a split all the way up the middle. Now we're going to take this piece that we made, the arms, and we're going to put it right here all the way up to the neck as tight as we can get it without tearing anything. Okay, so now we have two arms, one on each side. We're going to take another piece of yarn and we're going to go right underneath those arms. So right under where the armpits would be. And here again, you might need an extra set of hands to do this. So if you're doing this project at home with your kids, this is a great opportunity for them to learn how to tie some knots. And both of you can work on this together. This is how the kids would be working on this project in the classroom, and we would tell them, have the person sitting next to you help you hold your doll while you tie the knots, and then you can switch and you can work on their doll and help them tie their knots. Okay. So there we go, we've got that tied on together. So like I said before, this is kind of the skeleton of the doll. You won't really see this part. It'll be all underneath, it'll be all covered up. Okay, so now, before I showed you that we'd cut out those two pieces, these are going to be the skirts of our doll. Okay, so first we want a piece of yarn laid out in front of us like this, horizontally in front of us on the table, like that. Then we're going to take one of these skirts, we're going to lay it in front of us. We're going to be folding this down, so I want it to be inside out. So the side of the skirt that you want to see, if your paper bag has designs on it like mine does, or logos, you want that part to be facing down toward the table. So you want the part of the skirt that you want to see, so this part here should be up facing you. Okay. Alright, and now we're going to use a sophisticated form of measurement. Not really. You can use your little finger and just measure that the point of your little finger should touch the yarn. The base of your little finger should be in line with the base of the skirt here. Okay. Now we're going to take our doll and we're going to lay her right on top of that yarn, just to where you can see that yarn going right underneath her arm, just like that. Okay. Now our other piece, our other skirt piece, is going to lay right on top of everything. And like I said, if you've got any logos on your bag, you want that to be out. You want it to be facing up for this one, because inside we're going to flip this all around. So this part here and this part here, this is going to be the outside in a minute when we flip everything over. So that's the part you're going to see. So you want these labels to be on the inside of the skirt once we flip everything around. You're going to lay this right on top of everything, and you want to line up the base down here. You want to make sure these 2 points are lined up together. All right, you're not really too concerned about where this part is. You want to make sure these are lined up. All right. Now this part's a little tricky because, like I said, normally we would soak the corn husk to make it pliable, and because we can't soak this paper, it's going to be a little more stiff. But what you want to do is kind of gently scrunch this all together to where you can see those arms sticking out. Oh, and I got a little tear right there. We should be okay. Alright, now you're going to take that string and you're going to tie another knot right here. And this is going to hold your skirts and that head and arm piece together. Hopefully we can catch that head in there so that it doesn't slide out. Like that. Alright, so we've got that tied together. Now I'm just going to take my scissors and trim those strings again. Okay, now I'm going to gently fold these skirts down. Gently fold the back down. So now you can see the head and the arms with the skirts down below. And if we did it right, all of the logos should be on the inside, so we really can't see them. Okay. Now here, if you feel like you need to, because this kind of slides in and out easy, we weren't able to get it really good and tight, you can use your glue we talked about earlier, and you can kind of put some glue down in here to hold that doll together a little nicer. Okay. Alright, so there's our doll so far. Okay, now we're going to take these 2 pieces that we cut for the shawl. Alright, we're going to take those and we're going to cross them. We're going to make a little X. We want our X down low toward the base, down here toward the wide end, and then you want the pointy ends up. Okay, so there's my 2 pieces for my shawl. Now I'm going to take my doll and we're going to put the shawl on the back of the doll first. It doesn't matter which side is the back, just whichever you prefer. You're going to take your 2 pieces for your shawl and you're going to put that cross right where the 2 pieces cross. You're going to put that right against her back. Okay. Alright. And then when you turn her over, it kind of looks like she has little fairy wings. Now you're going to take one of those pieces for the shawl and you're going to bring it down and over to her hip. You're going to take another piece and bring it down across her shoulder to the other hip. Okay. Okay, so now we have her shawl there. I'm going to take a piece of yarn. We're going to lay her down on that piece of yarn and we're going to tie all of this together. Now on that first doll that I made, this example here, I kind of turned the paper to where it made sort of a little round cup sort of shape here. And that way, when we're done, the doll can stand up. Okay, so as you're tying this last piece of yarn, you kind of want to manipulate your paper where when you tie it, it kind of wraps around and makes that cup shape. That way your doll will stand upright. And if it doesn't quite work that way, well, you can say that you tried. When we make these dolls out of corn husk, once the corn husk dries, it becomes very stiff and the dolls will hold themselves up. Alright, so we're going to put some yarn here. I'm just going to make a real simple knot and I'm going to pull it tight, and this is going to form her waist if we can get it to do it right. I'll pull that tight. Okay. Alright, and this piece of yarn becomes her belt. So we don't have to trim that off. If you don't want to trim it, you can just leave it hanging there. Alright. So now we're just going to kind of curve that around a little bit. Roll it under. And now what you can do at the base, down here at the bottom of the skirts, is if it doesn't quite stand, if she doesn't quite want to stand up on her own, you can trim that along the base and even it up a little bit to make it a little more flat. So that's what we'll do now. I'll trim that right across the bottom just to make it level. And that might help her stand up a little easier. See if she stands. Yeah, see, mine's a little crooked, so you can play around with that and trim it as you need to. Alright. I think my first doll was a little better, my example doll. But as you can see, there's your little Cherokee paper Cornhusk doll. And you can play around with different designs and use crayons and markers and give her some different colored clothes if you want to. And like I said, you can use some colored paper to add for her shawl if you want. But basically, that's how we would have made a traditional Cherokee Cornhusk doll, like you see here. Okay. All right. We hope you enjoyed the video. Cherokee Heritage Center is a nonprofit organization and has been a pioneer in cultural programming for 57 years. For us to continue our mission to preserve, promote, and teach, we need the generous support from people like you. For more information on how you can be a part of our legacy, visit our website at www.cherokeeheritage.org/support. Wado.